6 weeks after Reed died, we'd already booked ourselves on an Alaska cruise. You'd be talking to new people. And the logical question in that situation is, well, how many children do you have? It's like, oh my gosh, what do I say? Reed was 21 when he died. He was the second of two children, and he was always the spice to his older brother's sugar. But he went away to university and he flunked his first term. Well, he was always the kind of kid that could do really well or not do well at all. He came home, he had a job at one of the oil companies in Calgary, and was having a good time, seemed to be connecting with the other students that were there. And then one morning I was cleaning up the house and I found this old suicide note. Needless to say, my life fell apart. You know nothing about suicide. And there's the stigma. You're not going to tell anybody. I mean, Reed's already feeling awful. He attempted suicide. You don't want to sort of embarrass him anymore by talking to friends. So you're absolutely terrified. And you just don't grab a 21-year-old and drag him to the doctor and expect everything to be fine. And unfortunately, before we were able to figure out how we were going to engineer that, Reed killed himself.
Suicide can happen very, very quickly. It may be that at least some of the people who die by suicide would, if they had just another moment or two, have changed their minds.
My name is Renea Mohammed. I am a program coordinator for Vancouver Community Mental Health Services. I'm a wife, a friend, a writer. I have a few different roles. And a survivor of suicide as well. Do I think of suicide attempts as cries for help? In my case, I didn't think that anyone could help me. I had been struggling, and my struggles were causing problems for the people who cared about me, so problems for my husband, for my family, because they were worried about me. And I started to think that they would be better off without me. I had decided to make a suicide attempt in a hotel so that my husband wouldn't be the one to find me. And so I remember walking to the hotel and getting about halfway there and then changing my mind and walking home. And then changing my mind again and starting to walk toward the hotel, and then changing my mind again and walking home and going back and forth before I did eventually go to the hotel and make the suicide attempt.
I believe there is always at least some ambivalence about dying. A part of you that wants to die, and a part of you that, if the pain could be managed, the psychological pain that you're experiencing in your life, if that could be managed, you might be willing to give life a chance.
And I remember waking up in the emergency ward, and my husband Chris was sitting beside me in a chair beside the bed. And he just looked so reassuring. He wasn't angry with me. He was, he was really, empathetic and caring. And I remember looking at him, and he smiled at me, and I just felt so much relief that it hadn't worked.
When Reed died, we found out in the evening. What I really remember is the following morning calling his best buddy, Leanne, and she was so stunned. And it was the first phone call I made. And I realized, oh my gosh, as shattered as I am, I'm still 12 hours ahead of these guys. And this is the first I've told, like, they are really shattered, they're crushed, they're dumbfounded. So that perhaps what I learned from that was that I needed to take care of them as much as they needed to take care of me. And that was an important learning, I think. One of the things that survivors find tricky is how you come out of it. None of the standard terms work. Well, get over it. Well, actually, that would be denying my son. And I don't want to do that. Get through it. Get past it. All of those things, I can't deal with it, and I can't even remember the rest of them. But I was doing a presentation with a gal who's had one of these life coaches, and she used the term new normal. That's it. Because that acknowledges that my life is never going to be the same as it was. But it also says I'm going to be able to have a new life, that I am going to have a good life. I've got another son that deserves the best I can be, as well as another grandchild, which I love, and I want to have fun with him.
Ultimately, we're fighting against despair. It comes back to figuring out what we can do so that most people are able to build lives they want to stick around for. Many survivors are now what they would call survivors in action. So they've moved to a place where they are doing work with suicide prevention in order that other people don't have to go through the profound and terrible feelings of loss and despair that they experience. And certainly Bonny is one of those people.
We're really working together as a team. We're learning to use the lived wisdom component of survivors to come together and to see if we can make a difference in suicide by working together.
It's about living a life that's satisfying and fulfilling and meaningful and that you're happy with. To me, that's what recovery is about. It's not about the presence or absence of symptoms or, eliminating problems. It's about living beyond problems. It's also not about going back. I'm not the same person. I'm not the same as I was before I struggled, and I wouldn't want to be the same.